Hello class, this is Alex, and I'm going to be presenting my final presentation on Freakonomics. Now, Freakonomics was a very interesting, very well thought out book, something I haven't quite read before. Certainly very odd and unique, but very informative, I have to say. Now, I'd like to begin with the overall theme, and it says it right in the intro. What do you, in my opinion, what do you do with no theme? I'll get to my central question in a minute, but this is something I had to come at first. When you have no unifying theme, as it's stated in the intro, that allows you to explore every possibility, which is exactly what we saw in Freakonomics. So just putting that as at least my first stepping stone to get to my central question, but allowing yourself to explore every possibility allows for different perspectives to form. Now, here's my central question. How does information show us new perspectives? I think throughout the whole book, every chapter seemed to have this, and I believe it is the overall theme, and therefore, this is what I believe the central question is. So, as far as being different perspectives, we have to look at least in my opinion, how my examples would be like becoming a college student and having conversations with a lot of different students of ages, races, different backgrounds, and learning just a whole bunch of stuff. I guess that makes me thinking like a freak because I've had a lot of interesting conversations and I've definitely learned a lot. There has been a lot of instances of learning how to understand information of things I didn't quite understand, but once I put it into, say, maybe like a video game aspect, or maybe if I took a few like cooking classes and I used certain numbers to remember certain spices or something like that, then I'm able to view what I'm doing through a new lens. Now, when you're dealing with differing perspectives, you want to take a look with as many eyes as possible. And in this case, these glasses would represent the different lenses you could technically look through, and they have multiple combinations, and sometimes that's exactly what you need when you're looking at information, which will allow you to open up your mind to what is really going on. Maybe even start to post some dots that you might be able to connect later. Now, this allows you to start thinking like, hey, wait a second, that makes sense. All of a sudden 2 + 2 = 4, and you're starting to understand a little bit more of what is going on within these dots that you've just thought about. That is at least what I was taking away from the book. And as far as an application, the examples would just be examples of physics in the world. For example, what goes up must come down. Those are things that have been proven, but you can look at it through different lenses, and maybe sometimes things like parachutes might alter your perspective on what comes up must come down, but maybe it comes down a little slower this time. But what overall happens is you take this information that you've been looking through different lenses, you've been thinking on it, then you come back to your whiteboard or your drawing board, wherever you started from. You start connecting all these dots, or you start drawing out your statistics to understand what exactly is going on, and at the end, you're able to see a lot more connections. You don't necessarily have to do it on a whiteboard, but the example would just be being able to understand what exactly is going on. Now, as far as the reading goes, I found that it was looking for correlations between things, people, where information was coming from. For example, in the chapter of real estate agents and sumo wrestlers, it was information privilege. So if the real estate agents had information on one job market or on the market in the area, it was an easier sell for them, or they could get just a little bit more money for themselves, or be able to make a deal more easily because they know what exactly they can get for it. But then on the other side, they're able to sell their houses for more, get away with it, because they know the ins and outs, and they're their own real estate agent, so they get more money in the end. Sumo wrestlers have a privilege of throwing fights because knowing who wins and loses keeps a certain rank among the sumo wrestlers, which allows them to control what is going on. The overall Black Disciples, for example, which is a gang who controlled drugs, they took a correlation of what they were distributing and then writing it down and seeing where they can distribute it in different places. Overall, this allowed them to understand a lot more information of what was coming in, and looking at it through different perspectives, they were able to decide on how to make more money. Unfortunately, most of that money went to only one person, but in the long run, things made sense. Now, the last thing I want to get to would be online dating profiles. A lot of information, or a lot of information might be false, some of it might be true. It really depends on who you're talking to, but again, that's up to the person who is displaying themselves online, at least for their information part. But certain lies, for example, could offer a very different perspective on who exactly you're talking to rather than what the true person is. Now, this starts off the final question. How does this help after class? I was taught to look at things by refreshing your map, and your map is what you're given to look at the world. You draw it, and you constantly update it. And if you don't, you become outdated. You don't know this. You don't know what you need to know, and people may not be able to communicate with you or understand the same information. You want to use as many resources as possible to get the most accurate information. And when you're looking at through different perspectives, it allows you to take a step back, see how you can improve in what you're looking at, and then take that information and make it better to your own life and your own quote-unquote map, and then go from there. Now, after the class, this book mostly makes me think that we're able to connect dots we don't normally think on, based on just in how as humans we are. We just are very connected through maybe our phones, or from meeting different people, or through different perspectives of what we grew up with. All this information eventually helps us, or maybe doesn't necessarily help us, but maybe guide us to what we're doing at that present moment. When it comes to humans, though, you have to expect unexpected results, because as humans, we're not perfect. It's impossible. We just can't be perfect. It's hard to design experiments to control what we're doing, because there's so many variables to us. But as far as after the class, you have to be ready to connect what you know, and then also be keeping an open mind to learning new information. Now, this came from an article of how information gives you competitive advantage, and I'll just go over four quick steps from the article. So, when it comes to strategic significance, it mostly means cost and knowing your market, how you can deploy your product in the area to make a profit. This allows you to start defining value. Now, the value chain is finding products that meet the buyer's needs. If you can't do that, you don't really have a value, and therefore you have no chain, which would start off the process of getting a company a profit. Now, in today's world with information technology, as it is improving, it allows you to transform the product. So it's mostly thinking on how to use and support the product, its intended uses, and make sure it's used for for the right reasons, maybe not the wrong ones. As far as information will allow you to pretty much understand a lot of different things, but then it comes to changing the industry structure, because now it forces companies to become a lot more competitive with other people to make a profit. They don't just have not always an edge, but they need a constant edge above everyone else to figure out all their how to get, I guess, a profit from the other opponents, at least depending on the job market. But overall, I found that Freakonomics was a very good read, and there was a lot to learn. There was a tremendous amount of dots that I would have never have connected if it wasn't for reading this book. Now, my last slide is my works cited page. All my images I took from Google Images, and then the article by Millar and Porter, How Information Gives You a Competitive Advantage. I hope you have a good day, and this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.